One Piece artifact sets in Genshin Impact, something that I'm willing to bet many of you either completely forgot existed or just never even cared to pay attention to in the first place. The idea of a One Piece set bonus is a little bit silly, but that's what they are. They come on 4-star circlets and they only have one type of effect on them, and that is reducing the amount of time you are affected by Pyro, Electro, Hydro, and Cryo. The funny thing is it is nearly impossible to criticize anything in Genshin Impact, no matter what it is, without somebody coming out to say, it is amazing, everyone else is wrong, only I know that it's good. Even knowing that, I find it extremely hard to believe that even one of you is going to try to argue for these things. Not only do you have to tank your stats by equipping a 4-star artifact, but you also need to be specifically using a circlet as an off-piece instead of a goblet, the most common one, and the effect of this thing is just useless. I mean, we already even have an easier way to get this effect, even though maybe they stack, I don't even care if they do, through the elemental resonance system. And when is the last time you ever heard somebody say, I'm gonna put an elemental resonance in my party so I'm affected by X element for less time? The answer to that is never, probably. I'm sure there's a few people out there that when the Spiral Abyss made them face the slowing waters status effect, that maybe they considered reducing the amount of time Hydro is affecting them. But generally, if you're going to go down that route, you're just going to put a cleanse in your party like Jean or Bennett. In any case, I didn't make a whole video just to crap on how useless One Piece artifact sets are. More that I think there should be more of these and more useful effects. New and interesting One Piece sets have been something that I've been thinking about ever since version 1.2 and Xiao came out. We got that extra jump height on Xiao, and I thought, hey, something like that could be a really cool effect for a One Piece artifact set. That opens Claymore characters and really anyone who wants to do it to be able to plunge attack from flat ground without having to rely on any tricks like Dragon Strike. More importantly, that is actually something that is really useful for overworld exploration. How many of you out there have had an exploration party that doesn't include any Geo, any Claymore, or any characters like Beidou that is able to mine ore effectively? Now, I know many people these days don't necessarily mine ore very often, but when, sometimes you find yourself out in the world, you see a really dense cluster of ore and you want to mine it, but no one in your party can really do it effectively. You got to either climb up something nearby and keep plunge attacking over and over again, and it's kind of annoying. So maybe you just walk on, or maybe you actually suffer through that process. So a One Piece set bonus that increases jump height by like double or 50% or something, this would allow anyone to plunge attack at any time, which would have some combat applications, but not enough to really feel like a necessary thing. But most importantly, would just be more useful for overworld exploration. The next idea for One Piece set is a very simple concept, just added movement speed, whether it be like 15 to 25% or something around that range. Particularly, I think it would be nice if there was an additional line to this artifact set that gave a double bonus to any character wielding a claymore, a sword, or a polearm. Now, of course, this one starts to enter the territory of actually affecting combat a little bit more, but that is the exact reasoning. One of the reasons that makes characters like Sino and Razor a little bit less desirable than other characters is because when you have to run around and get in melee range of everything, that travel time can really hurt your overall DPS and uptime on enemies, obviously, unlike range characters that don't really have to worry about that. Now, of course, a set bonus like this would step on the toes of characters and weapons that provide small movement speed bonuses by quite a bit, especially if you make the value hefty enough. But I mean, why not just have both? Next idea is one focused almost entirely on the overworld, unlike the previous two that have some applications everywhere. This would be a set that makes cooldowns tick faster while you're out of combat. Now, the concept of being in and out of combat isn't something that really gets brought up in Genshin a lot. Like, sometimes you get prevented from doing certain things while you're in combat with some enemies, but for the most part, that is almost an entirely overworld thing, as whenever you're in a domain or in the Spiral Abyss or something, enemies are always targeting you and you should always be considered in combat. So having something like this isn't going to impact those aspects of the game at all, and instead focuses entirely on the overworld. Of course, they always have the option to just slap the same bit of text on the end of Rosaria's passive on just about anything and it does the exact same thing. In any case, why exactly would you want this? What is the value of reducing cooldowns in the overworld? Well, obviously, one of the biggest benefits are characters that have skills or bursts or whatever that offer some kind of mobility in the overworld, like Wander, Yelan, Sayu. It also significantly improves how good some characters are at solving overworld puzzles. Now, I understand some characters with reduced cooldown may impact the balance of some puzzles enough, but most puzzles in this game that involve elements are able to be cheesed with certain characters anyway. Even more importantly than that, it makes makes characters that have long cooldowns just a lot less punishing to try to solve puzzles with. I have absolutely terrible memories of trying to solve Liyue Geo puzzles with Noelle, just walking up to Geo pillars one by one, popping my shield on them, and waiting for that long ass cooldown to come back, because I was too lazy to switch to Ningguang, or I just didn't want to, I was being stubborn. And sometimes in that case, even your Geo Traveler might currently be Anemo Traveler, and they don't exactly make changing that the easiest process either. Most importantly, this allows characters that have a long cooldown that their infusion is tied to actually perform a little bit better in the overworld, because I have a lot of experience playing characters like Itto and Sino, and they both feel pretty bad to use in the overworld, and sadly, even this wouldn't completely fix that problem. That's still mostly stemming from the fact that the overworld just isn't strong enough to do anywhere close to proper rotations on when your character is properly geared, and you just don't get enough energy back even if you do get the cooldown back, but at least solves part of the problem. The next set is also focused entirely on overworld exploration. The goal of this set is to reduce the amount of falling damage you take, as well as to increase the duration at which you can fall before you start taking fall damage, also known as increasing the distance. Obviously, we have plunge attacks that already do this. You can plunge attack at pretty much any height and survive, but still take a little bit of damage. So not only would this reduce the amount of damage you take even from plunging, but in a lot of situations it might allow you to just not have to plunge at all. Granted, even if the set did exist, I'd probably just still rely on plunging, and instead use one of the other sets I proposed. Next up are 3 different sets that all do a very similar thing: climbing, gliding, and swimming speed. Now, unlike the movement speed, these aren't going to do anything for any kind of combat, which is exactly why I didn't mention in the same vein as the movement speed one, because movement speed one is an outlier from these ones. These are pure exploration. It's for that reason that the values on these ones instead of the movement speed ones can be much higher, because while we do have characters that do some of these things, again, there's no reason why you can't have both. And unlike those characters do it for your whole party no matter who you're using, as long as they're in there. Whereas these artifacts, they're designed to only work on the character they're equipped on. Not only that, but if you were using them on a DPS, which is what we're running around with in the overworld most of the time, you would need one that's good enough to not suffer, and also you would need it to be an off-piece circlet. And I didn't say it in words, in spoken words in this video yet, but obviously these would have to be upgraded to 5-star artifacts, otherwise they're just trash. Next are 2 very similar ones focused on resource gathering. The first one is ore veins mined by this character always give 1 extra ore, so instead of the 1 to 3 range we know now, it will become 2 to 4. Then there's a wood counterpart, where a character that's equipping this artifact set can hit a tree for an extra time for wood. This is to take into account Itto's passive, so instead of power creeping that and just making it so anyone can get extra wood, it instead gives him another chance to get an extra proc of his. Honestly, both of these could just instead be new passives for new characters as well, instead of being artifact sets like this. But I do really think there's a lot of value in new ways of augmenting existing characters instead of just loading your roster with a bunch of new ones that some people may never get. That being said, keep giving us new passives, because we don't need any more cooking ones. In any case, that's really about all I can come up with on the spot without starting to get into the territory where you start actually increasing the power of characters. Things like reducing the time it takes to do a plunge attack, the delay of the actual attack, which if you didn't know, that already exists, which is partially why I don't know if you could make this a set. Characters like Bennett and Albedo actually plunge faster than other sword users. What I really want is just ways to customize our characters and make them our own, Right now we have teams we can build, and artifacts, we have a little bit of choices, but not really. And weapons, it's often more to what we have, more so what we would like to equip on a character. While getting a perfect set of 4 artifacts, to be able to equip a offset circlet just to be able to have one of these things is a little bit more difficult than what we're used to. The whole point of these is to be completely optional and not really needed. Yeah, sure, the movement speed might start to go into that territory a little bit, especially when you play characters like I use as an example, Sino and Razor. As we know, they'll do just fine without them. They just do better with it. But in any case, if you have any ideas for this kind of stuff, let me know, because these hypotheticals are fun, even if they are never going to happen. I still find it fun to think about. In any case, thank you to you for watching. Thank you to my members and my patrons for supporting me as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Attaboy!